Hey friends, Kambria Evans here, and I'm going to talk about a really timely topic today, which is why EMDR works for the winter holidays. Now, I know that all of you have had lots of positive triggers towards the holiday season, and a lot of you have had lots of negative triggers towards the holiday season. And this time of year is so interesting because there's so many variables impacting our emotional experience. First of all, unless you live in Australia, we are in winter. And it's not a coincidence that winter is therapists' busiest time of year. It's cold, it's dark, it's rainy or snowy. The days are shorter, it gets darker sooner. We kind of just have this natural somatic inclination to hibernate in these types of climates and these types of dark kind of cave-like season. So that's happening and that's real, that's impacting us. And then also what's happening is we are linking in our nervous systems seasonally, right? There's lots of like seasonal depression or seasonal affective disorder. And yes, the sun and the dark sky totally impact that. And what's also at play here is your neural networks are linking to all the Christmases and Hanukkahs and New Year's before, right? Linking to all of those, linking to calendar time. There are anniversaries that might fall for some of us of people that we've lost who used to be present for certain holidays who are no longer. So it's really complicated. There's a lot going on. And it makes sense that we would want to hibernate. It makes sense we'd want to go to a safe, warm place to get through. And yet, paradoxically, somehow the holiday season is one of the busiest times for everybody. It's cold and flu season. There's tons of events at, kids' schools and holiday events. And it's just a busy cadence. It's a busy time of year that could understandably put somebody into a collapse state with all of that. So there's a lot at play here. But what really is at play here that I really want to dive into today is this idea of attachment trauma. So EMDR is amazing for attachment trauma. And what does that mean? Attachment trauma is essentially a relational trauma that we had with an attachment primary caregiver, right? An attachment figure. And so when we think about relational trauma, that can apply to like husbands and wives or other relationships, but attachment figures are the early caregivers we had. It could be mom, dad, two moms, two dads. It could be grandparents. It could be anyone who took care of you. And what are the holidays known for, y'all? They're known for, if you look at all the movies and TV shows, holidays are all about families coming together. Oh boy, we are going to light up some memory networks. We're not just lighting up a Christmas tree. We're lighting up memory networks here, okay? Because here's what's crazy. When we are getting together with our family of origin or our caregivers of origin, or we're not doing that, okay, we are potentially reactivating many traumas that might have happened with a primary caregiver for days, weeks, months, years, decades. Okay, and here's the icing on the trauma cake. The icing on the trauma cake is that because your memories are stored oftentimes by ages, like we might have an 8-year-old part that holds some disturbing memories from 3rd grade about being bullied. We might have a 14-year-old part that might hold some disturbing memories about having to change high schools and being alone, okay? So we typically have a lot of these traumatic memories stored by age. And here's what's crazy. When we are back with our primary caregivers, our attachment figures, every single age that we were in relationship with them is coming with us to Thanksgiving dinner. You're not coming alone. I don't care if you're in a 35-year-old body. You, my friend, and all of us have multiple parts of self that are all different ages, and you are going to have every single part of you linked up and lit up by being around your primary attachment figure. And this could be for better or for worse, right? This could be like the really positive feeling we have when our mom texts us. But for some of us, that could be the really negative feeling we have when our mom texts us. And for some of us, that could be the really negative feeling that we have when our mom doesn't text us because we're not in a relationship or estranged, or I never had a mom, right? There's so many ways to light this up. And it's not just activating you as an adult in your adult body. It is activating every younger part of you that experienced that relationship, for better or for worse. Okay. And this is why it's so complicated at the holiday time. It's so complicated. Okay. And let's not even forget that a lot of our activation is going to invite parts of us to help us. Okay. But if I have a 15-year-old part that's getting activated by my mom's voice at Thanksgiving, right? I might go to my 15-year-old's adaptation. What's an adaptation? We've talked about this in previous episodes. An adaptation is something that you have created to help you get through something difficult, okay? For some of us, it's being a perfectionist. For some of us, it's being totally destructive and getting drunk, okay? And so we typically create these adaptations at different ages when they were needed. And the reason holidays can get so crazy and dramatic and intense is because literally everyone at that table is lit up. And if you have, if you're an adult with parents who are still alive and you're noticing them interacting with you and it feels hard, well, that's because their brain, let's say they're in their 60s or 70s, their brain's linking to not only every holiday with you as their child, they're linking to every holiday they had with their parents. Could you imagine sitting around like a 60-year-old, a 70-year-old who's getting lit up and activated into the past with you and then like back 60, 70 years? Woo, right? This is why the holidays are so weird and so great too. It's such a mixed bag. And I want you to understand this as we go into the holiday season, that the reason you feel so cuckoo or so great or a mix is because this is literally what everyone's nervous system is designed to do, for better or for worse, okay? And it's just, the holidays are this crazy algorithm of attachment figures, linking up all the past, linking up the present, whatever's happening there, linking up weird, dark weather, okay? A lot's going on. No wonder therapists are slammed. Yeah, we are slammed waitlisted from like October to March. But thick waitlists from September to January because we're planning the holidays, we're thinking about the holidays, we're getting everybody ready to rock and roll. Okay, so if you're listening to this, you might be nodding your head. It might be resonating with you, and that's fantastic. I want to give you some help, okay? I'm not going to leave you out on your own during this complicated time. I've had a lot of requests for people to come and work with me here in California. And because I'm just one person, I've been putting together something really, really special that I wanted to offer you. And this is literally like a download of my clinical brain. It is a download of my treatment planning. It's a download of how I work with and talk with people who come into my office. And sometimes I'll have people fly into my office into California and work with me for a week intensively with EMDR and brain spotting. But that's not always an option for people. And my calendar is already swamped for the holidays. So I thought, why don't I just find a way to help people get what they need, get some understanding and some relief about their triggers, about the beliefs, about what's being activated, about their attachment figures, about their sense of self with their attachment figures, about each developmental stage they've gone through and their sense of self, how that was reflected back to them like a mirror with those early attachment figures, okay? So I've done a brain dump and made it beautiful because I want you to have this, okay? This is my first client workbook that I have ever offered, I've ever put together. I typically have only served therapists and made clinical materials for them. And this is for everybody, okay? So I'm really excited to offer this. If you're interested in getting this for yourself for the holidays, you can use it when you're not in therapy. You can use this when you're working with a therapist, whether they're a talk therapist or a brain-based therapist like an EMDR therapist or a brain spotting therapist, okay? If you're interested, you can find it in your Zero Disturbance client library, which is going to be available to you when you opt in to the mailing list, or you can find more information about it in the link below. Okay? Not going to leave you high and dry around this time of year. I'm talking about how hard it is and complicated. I'm going to give you some tools to manage it, okay? Fantastic. So when we think about attachment trauma, I think the reason that people don't typically identify as having had attachment trauma is because a lot of what we've gone through in childhood is so normalized, right? I talked about this in my EMDR Works for Parents episode, which is a lot of us in the 80s were spanked. Spanking was super normal. It just was. A lot of things were normal, right? You could go outside in the 80s and just like ride your bike around wherever, and there was no cell phone, no way to track you, which felt super free, but maybe not super safe. And you could just be home before dark or dark-ish, right? Assuming you had a sense of like how far away you were and how long it took to get back, and lots of independence during that time for us latchkey kids. So it's interesting to think about the things we thought were so normal, not just for that time period, but maybe for our community. Maybe you grew up in a community as a kid where alcohol was really normalized and there was block parties or big family reunions and everyone's getting drunk and weird stuff happened, right? And maybe it wasn't an assault. Maybe it wasn't something that's like notable, remarkable, memorable on the front burner of our minds that we can all talk about. More than likely, it was the little things, right? It was that dad was drunk most nights. It was that mom didn't say anything about it, right? And then we learn all these rules. We learn all these rules about how to be in our family systems, how to get attachment, right? Where we feel connected, where we feel safe, where we feel loved and important and good, right? Kids literally just want to feel those things all the time. That's what kids want to feel, and adults too. So we have these experiences and they're not super remarkable at the time. But when we work with an EMDR therapist or a brain spotting therapist who's trained to work with attachment trauma, relational trauma, these are the clinicians that understand that all of those little things that we might have brushed off as a kid, all those little things had an impact on us. They impact the way that we see ourselves, the world, have relationships with everybody, right? And I think what's so remarkable for me is that I knew growing up, right, in East Lansing, Michigan, I knew in elementary school I was a poor kid. That was conscious for me because people at school pointed that out to me based on my clothes and based on the fact that I was in an apartment, not in a house, right? But I never got the opportunity to really put together the narrative of my neighborhood, right? I lived at the bottom of this hill. Our apartment would always flood when it rained, and all the nice houses were kind of on the top of the hills. And I would like ride my bike around the neighborhood to the top parts of the neighborhood to see all these beautiful houses with these really nice cars, and it felt very light and sunny there. And my part of the neighborhood felt like home. It was where I lived. And if I look back as an adult, there were kids riding bikes around holding knives. There were kids walking around and we didn't know where their parents were. There was a drive-by shooting across the street from my house. That was probably a drug house. Like, we didn't fully put this together as kids, but they were these subtle things that just felt weird or off. Something didn't feel right, but it also felt normal. It also felt normal because it was normal to us. And when you grow up poor, you might not have the luxury of having secure attachment with parents. If they have to work a bunch of jobs, they're not going to be there, right? There might be some neglect. So you think about, no matter what socioeconomic level you were at or visited in your childhood, the issues I'm talking about affect every corner of society. Doesn't matter how much money you have, how much education, right? When a parent drinks, they're not emotionally present. And sometimes they get silly and fun, but maybe they don't feel reliable and safe, right? Or maybe they get really mean and really scary, or maybe they pass out and you feel alone, okay? But my point is that all of these things are relational trauma. All the moments that we notice with caregivers where we didn't feel secure, We didn't feel safe. We didn't feel connected. We didn't feel good enough, or we felt bad, right? All these moments with our primary caregivers make an impact in our learning of how we understand ourselves and the world. It just does. And most of the people I see and have seen for years in my practice have attachment trauma, right? Because those are the students that want to learn the most. And that's how I think about that. They're the students who want to learn the most because they have a sense of what curriculum and experiences they came from. And they can see, well, some people's holidays look like this, and some people's holidays feel like this. Okay? And there's nothing like the holidays, for better or for worse, that give us a measuring stick, right? Gives us a measuring stick to see, here's what it's supposed to be like. Look at all these movies about Christmas and Thanksgiving, right? Look at all these TV shows about how great New Year's is supposed to feel. Here's what it's supposed to be like. You're supposed to be with someone on New Year's to kiss them for the new year. You're supposed to be with family, and they're supposed to be a kind family, a functional family during the holidays. A lot of us don't get to have these experiences. And so when we have all of this flood of social media and movies and TV shows about winter holidays in particular, and we'll throw in Valentine's Day too, the gap of where we are and how we feel and what we have and don't have becomes so apparent. This gap becomes so notable basically almost every day, right? And that is lit up by seeing decorations, Christmas trees, right? Lights, reminders, right? So I hope this is feeling helpful because if nothing else, I want you to understand that you are not alone in feeling weird about winter holidays. And you're not alone in having it be a mix. And you're definitely not alone in not having what you thought you were going to have or wanted to have or what you think everyone else has during the holidays. And what I want to invite you to do, no matter what your situation is this holiday season, is I want you to stay with yourself. However you need to do that, right? This can be a time that adaptations pop up around drinking, around addiction, around disordered eating, right? I mean, there's so much food presented to us over the holidays, and we have different relationships with food. And whatever is being activated in you, whatever is lighting you up like a damn Christmas tree this holiday season, stay with yourself. Just stay with yourself, knowing that you are carrying literally tons of little yous inside you. All parts of you are being lit up and brought to the front burner of your emotional experience, of your somatic body sensations. You might have lots of dreams or nightmares. Like, this is all very common. We are all going through this on the holidays. And if you can give yourself one gift besides staying with yourself, I want to invite you to check out my client workbook. Like I said, I have never offered this before. This feels like something that has been a labor of love. It's the way I work with my clients. It's all the tools and exercises that I have found valuable from over 10,000 EMDR sessions here in my office to help you feel resourced, to help you feel like you can see yourself, and to offer you that relational mirror so that you understand yourself. Right? If you didn't get that good enough mirror given to you growing up with your attachment figures, this is an opportunity to start doing that now. And what I want to say too, as we come into the new year is, as you make your New Year's resolutions, wouldn't it be amazing if you were to give yourself the best makeover ever, which is priceless, which is a new emotional experience and appreciation of self. So I hope this has been helpful. I'll be thinking of all of you over the holiday season. And as always, I love hearing from you. If you have any feedback or questions, they always inform my podcast episodes because I am here to serve and educate and liberate as many people as I possibly can that aren't able to come to my office here in California. So I will look forward to our next clinical conversation, our thoughtful conversation here on the podcast together. In the meantime, be well.